They greeted you with silence the moment you stopped begging. You remember that sting, the sudden shift when you realized words were your weakness. They leaned back, folding their arms while you poured your heart out, hoping for scraps of empathy. In that hollow pause, you felt every ounce of your power drain away. You fought the urge to fill the void with apologies, with explanations, with pleas to be seen. Instead, you stayed quiet. You let the silence press against them like a question they couldn't answer. And in the weight of your unspoken truth, they flinched. They called you cold because you refused to decorate your pain for their comfort. They told you that vulnerability was strength, yet recoiled when you bared a shard of yourself and asked nothing in return. That paradox was your weapon, showing them that your value isn't declared, it's perceived. When you stopped defending your worth, they started doubting their own authority to assign it. Your absence of pleading became the loudest demand in the room. Imagine every encounter as a board game in which you're the only player who understands the rules. They move their pieces, compliments, guilt trips, casual dismissals, believing they control the flow, but you, enigmatic and still, observe the pattern. You learn that mystery is not hiding, but revealing only what they need to see to lose their footing. Keep your hand unmoving. Let them guess which card you hold. In that uncertainty, you hold the real power. You've tasted the betrayal of your own soft heart once too often. You've granted second chances to liars who thanked you with contempt. This stops now. The moment you refuse to explain, you reclaim territory they never knew they lost. Your self-possession. They watch you, unsettled, searching for cues you no longer give. In that vacuum of expectation, they collapse under the weight of their own insecurity. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and commit to silence as your first act of defiance. Let the emptiness after your last word demand their attention. Let the unseen lines you draw around yourself be the fortress they can't breach. They watched you speak truth once and assumed you'd fold back into their expectations. Instead, you held your gaze, letting your silence stalk the room. In that stillness, they searched your eyes for fear, for regret, for the familiar tremor of someone begging for mercy. They found none. You felt the thrill of their confusion ripple through the space between you, a charge more potent than any apology you ever uttered. Now, every question they lob your way rebounds against the glass wall you built around yourself. You don't flinch. You don't blink. Your unspoken answer is a mirror reflecting their own questions back at them. And the more they demand clarity, the more they reveal how little they understood you to begin with. You remember the last time you offered an explanation, how you watched them file it away as a footnote to your character. They never read the full story. You were a chapter they skimmed and dismissed when it stalled their narrative. So you stopped clarifying. You let your actions speak in a language they couldn't ignore. The decision to walk away without resentment. The refusal to chase apologies that tasted like lies. In that departure, you taught them a harsher lesson than any confrontation could have delivered. Detachment isn't denial. It's a statement that your peace isn't negotiable. They will try again. They'll send messages at odd hours, weaving soft platitudes with manipulative undertones. They'll drop heavy silences in group chats to lure you into the spotlight where they can stain you with their gossip. They'll stage their own dramas in the hopes you'll rush to extinguish them. But you've learned to treat their theatrics like fireworks, bright, loud, designed to distract. You stand outside their spectacle, untouched by the bang and dazzle, until the show collapses under its own contrivance. When the smoke clears, you remain the only one standing in the center of that charred circle, silent and unassailable. You feel the weight of their expectations shredding behind you when you distance yourself. They believed your soft edges were permanent fixtures, not flaws to be abandoned. Now they scramble for the version of you they can control, pleading for the old scripts you memorized to earn their approval. But you've burned that stage. You perform only for yourself now, and the standing ovation you crave is the quiet thrum of your own self-respect. They call it arrogance. They brand it aloofness. They whisper that you've changed. Good. Let them talk. Gossip is the desperate language of those who lack substance. Every rumor they spin is a confession of their own insecurity. If you cared enough to refute them, you'd be validating their power over you. Instead, you watch as their whispers coil into knots they can't untangle. Your calm certainty pummels them with a truth they can't ignore. You don't need their permission to exist. In your solitude, you cultivate a reserve of power that no one can deplete. You build rituals of self-respect that aren't performative, no hashtags, no public reveals, just private acts that cement your worth. You refuse to explain a single one. When they catch a glimpse of your composure, they mistake it for perfection. They assume your life is flawless because you refuse to expose the fractures. Let them believe that. In their envy, they will chase you, and in your pursuit of nothing, you'll command their attention more fiercely than any plea ever could. They'll recall the evenings you tolerated their manipulation, the mornings you replayed harsh words in your mind, crafting apologies you never sent. But you stopped sending them. You stopped consuming your own value for the sake of someone else's fragile ego. And in that surrender of your submission, you captured something far rarer than affection: respect. Because respect can't be begged for or bargained, it's seized when you refuse to relinquish your dignity. Remember, they didn't lose interest in you. They lost control. And in that void, you became the unseen force steering the ship. You decide when to anchor and when to set sail. You decide who remains on deck and who drowns in their own expectations. You speak less, win more, because every word you withhold is a strategic strike, a measured push that reshapes the battlefield in your favor. They sent you a message wrapped in compliments, praising the progress you made without acknowledging the wounds they inflicted. You read it, finger hovering over the keyboard, sensing the bait beneath the soft language. Every adjective was a tether, designed to pull you back into their orbit. You paused, feeling the familiar itch to respond, to smooth over their discomfort, to reassure them that you still cared. But instead of typing a single word, you closed the app. In that click, you delivered a verdict louder than any declaration of independence. You refused to negotiate your boundaries through flattery. They will call that ghosting. They will accuse you of being dramatic, heartless. Let them. Their labels are shackles they fling at anyone who refuses to perform on command. You learn that silence undercuts manipulation more effectively than any rebuttal. A response is a conversation. A refusal is a verdict. You watched them squirm when you didn't clarify your absence, trying to reconstruct the map of your intentions from the empty space you left behind. In that vacuum, they lost their footing, forced to navigate their own insecurities without the anchor of your explanations. You used to wonder if you were too cold, too detached. You dissected every interaction, seeking the misstep that made them recoil. You tried empathy as a shield. You apologized for being distant. You explained your silence as a coping mechanism. You pleaded for understanding. Each time, they accepted your rationale but shrugged off the aftermath. The relief you granted them became permission to repeat the pattern. Now you see, empathy isn't a gift to them. It's poison to you when they treat it like a guarantee. So you weaponized withdrawal. You let your care recede until they realized it wasn't inexhaustible. When they showed up in your life unannounced, leaning on your time and attention as if you owed them both, you greeted them with a static nod. You didn't flinch at their expectations. You didn't scramble to accommodate their demands. You simply let them wait. And in your steady refusal to budge, They discovered you were no longer available on their terms. Your unpredictability became your strongest tactic. They could no longer assume you'd respond at midnight, could no longer guilt you into rescue missions at dawn. You reshaped their calendar by reshaping your priorities. In your stillness, you began to chart an inner terrain they couldn't invade. You filled your hours with pursuits that required focus and disciplined fencing drills that taught you to anticipate attacks, silent retreats that taught you to endure the echo of your own mind, cold plunges that taught you physical pain had limits. None of that was for show. You didn't record your routines or post affirmations. You built competence in private, honing skills that translated into unshakable composure. When they tried to provoke a reaction, they met a surface as hard as tempered steel. Your well-practiced calm. They will test you. They will escalate until you either respond or redefine the relationship. Some will corner you with false choices. If you cared, you would, or deploy diversion tactics. There's someone else who, to stress, test your resolve. In those moments, you observe the pattern. Their escalation is a plea disguised as aggression. The louder they roar, the more you remain motionless. You let their frustration consume itself. When they finally exhaust the theatrics, they collapse into regret or indifference, but they never trap you in their drama again. Your reputation as the untouchable one ripples through your circle. Some admire your strength, others resent it. Both reactions confirm your strategy. Control isn't about universal approval. It's about refusing to cede power to anyone. You aren't building walls to keep people out. You're carving a fortress of self-governance inside your mind. In that inner citadel, no amount of external noise can penetrate. You walk through crowds feeling solitary because you know your value isn't crowdsourced. It's cultivated where no one else can see. Witness the transformation. When you stop explaining the abyss behind your eyes, you become a myth in their stories, a legend they spin when you're not around. They exaggerate your stoicism, romanticize your absence, fear the day you stop returning entirely. Let them chase that myth. In their pursuit of a phantom, they'll reveal the hollowness of their own attachments. And when they realize they've been chasing shadows, you'll be the only substance left. They reached for your empathy one last time, pressing guilt like a blade against your ribs. "After all I've done for you," they began, as if your kindness was a debt to be repaid. You heard the unspoken ledger behind their words, the tally of favors owed, emotional IOUs meant to bind you forever. But you neither thanked nor trembled. You let the accusation hang in the air, weightless yet heavy enough to expose their calculation. In that instant, you became the accountant of your own integrity. You decided which debts to honor and which to erase without ceremony. You recalled the evenings you stayed awake crafting the perfect justification, the mornings you rewrote your apologies until they sounded convincing. Each version was a concession, a fragment of your dignity surrendered to buy their goodwill. Now, you resist that slippage. You refuse to memorialize their favors in the annals of your obligation. You treat their generosity as what it is: conditional ammunition, fired only to keep you in place. You will neither salute it nor salute them. Your respect is earned once, then maintained by the boundaries you enforce, not by the explanations you supply. They'll parade every past kindness as a weapon against your detachment. They'll frame your self-possession as ingratitude. But gratitude that feels compulsory isn't gratitude. It's another form of captivity. You absorb their gestures without attaching your worth to them. You answer their generosity with equanimity, not with rhetorical debts. When you mastered this, you understood that you were no longer a collection of favors given and received. You were sovereign over your own value, untethered by the transactional game they relied on. Your silence morphed into an echo chamber of their own doubts. They spoke behind your back, whispering of your indifference, painting you as the villain in a storyline they wrote around themselves. Good. Let them cast you as the antagonist. Every myth they spin about your cruelty only cements the reality of your self-command. They mistake your refusal to perform for malice, and that mistake is your ally. They can't see that apathy toward their drama is the strongest form of care for yourself. They accuse you of cruelty, unaware that the true cruelty would be to sustain a relationship that devours your autonomy. As the dust settles, you assess the battlefield. Allies you expected to rally remain silent. Critics you dismissed as trivial fume in distant corners. You realize that your influence doesn't depend on a chorus of approval. You are the single note they can't harmonize with. They feel compelled to adjust their tune when they sense you're locked in your own rhythm. Your presence becomes a metronome, defining the pace by which they gauge their own worth. No conversation, no comment, no compliment can recalibrate that beat. Behind closed doors, you cultivate rituals that fortify your resolve. You stand before your reflection, not to coax reassurance, but to affirm that you answer to yourself first. You prepare your mind for confrontation through cold clarity, journaling harsh truths about your interactions, meditating on the sting of their control, rehearsing silence as a vow, not as a weapon. These acts are invisible to them, yet they steel you against every attempt to pull you back into the orbit of their expectations. You don't share these preparations. You embody them. Your mastery lies in their obliviousness to how unshakable you've become. They'll try to draw you back with nostalgia, the laughter you once shared, the dreams you once built together. They'll recount moments of false intimacy, offering them like baited hooks glinting in the sunday. You'll feel the tremor of memory, the ghost of comfort that once lured you into complacency. But you've learned that nostalgia is a terrain plastered with illusions of safety. You let those memories wash over you like static, neutralizing their sentimental charge by refusing to reenact them. You own the past without letting it dictate your future. The deeper you step into your own quiet dominion, the more they recoil. They sense the walls closing in, but they can't pinpoint the architect. You don't erect barricades against them. You forge an internal citadel that no assault can breach. In that unseen fortress, you cultivate reserves of meaning that exist independent of their validation. You eat in privacy. You rest in privacy. You heal in privacy. Every moment they attempt to infiltrate, they meet the same silent vigilance, an unyielding boundary set by your own unwavering will. Now, they stand at the threshold of your indifference, trembling at the unknown territory you inhabit alone. They may never cross it, and that is their loss, not yours. They see your absence as the final wound, failing to realize that absence itself is a statement more potent than presence. When you reappear, it will be on terms you define, not theirs, and in that return, they will recognize that your power never resided in your words, but in the void you create when you withhold them. They unleashed every accusation they could muster. You're ungrateful. You've changed. I barely recognize you anymore. As if your silence and self-possession were crimes punishable by their outrage. You watched their words ricochet off the hardness you cultivated, each barb swallowed by the cavern of your serenity. In their fury, they revealed the truth you always knew. Their respect hinged on your clamor for validation. Now that you refused to begging, they struck at your character, hoping to fracture the armor of your composure. But each accusation only polished your resolve, reflecting their impotence back at them. You remember the last time you pleaded for their understanding, how you bared your vulnerabilities only to have them dissected and dismissed. They pretended empathy while charting your weak points, adding them to the dossier they used to manipulate you. Now, when they brand you cold, You acknowledge the compliment. Coldness is the shield you forge from every betrayal. Each shiver of indifference you project is a declaration. You will not surrender your boundaries for anyone's comfort. They attempt to reclaim their dominion through guilt, a whispered reminder of sacrifices they supposedly made for you. I was there when, they begin, reciting moments you offered when they commanded. You listen without flinching, understanding that their version of generosity was a loan with exorbitant interest. In your quiet absence, they calculate the tally, hoping the weight of their so-called sacrifices will force your capitulation. But you treat their ledger as a tally of their own manipulations. You owe no repayment for the kindness you granted unconditionally. Your worth isn't a balance sheet. As they escalate, you escalate your inner rituals. You retreat into the discipline of your training, cold plunges that shock your nerves into clarity, meditation sessions that test your ability to endure the echo of your own thoughts, nightly cold showers that condition your body to accept discomfort without complaint. These rituals are not confessions. They are consecrations of your autonomy. They fortify the citadel of your calm. And in that sanctum, their drama dissolves into distant static. They try to break you with nostalgia, resurrecting memories of laughter and shared dreams. They believe sentimentality can override sovereignty. You allow nostalgia to wash over you like a winter wind, brisk, clarifying, but incapable of thawing the ice of your resolve. You honor the past without letting it rewrite your future. You are the architect of the next chapter, and no memory-laden plea can seismically shift the foundation you laid in solitude. In their desperation, they reach for threats, social ruin, exposure of your flaws, promises of revenge. They brandish these weapons as though your fear would yield, but you have rehearsed every scenario in the quiet of your own mind. You know that true power lies not in retaliation, but in the refusal to react. You let their threats collapse under the weight of your indifference, each one a testament to their dwindling control. Listen closely to the void you create when you withhold your presence. It becomes a living entity in their psyche, haunting their days and nights. They find themselves scanning their phones for messages that never come, replaying your last words in their mind, searching for a clue you intentionally erased. In that perpetual uncertainty, they mirror the very vulnerability they forced upon you. You weaponized mystery by abstaining from explanations, and now mystery feeds on their anxiety. They will never fully penetrate the fortress you built, nor will they comprehend the source of your unshakable stillness. They mistake your silence for apathy, unaware that silence preceded every revolution they ever feared. In that silence, you command the narrative. They chase shadows while you stand at the center of your own story. Your silence has become the final verdict they can't contest. You've stripped away every plea, every explanation, until only the raw edge of your presence remains. In that echo of withheld words, they confront a truth they've never known. You are no longer theirs to script. You didn't heal because you refused to play nurse. You evolved because you refused to be patient. Every withdrawal taught them that you value your peace more than their permission. You offered no reconciliation, no soft landing, only the unvarnished fact of your self-sovereignty. They'll remember you not as the person who begged forgiveness, but as the force they couldn't bend. In their darkest moments, they'll replay the blank screen where your response should have been, wondering what haunted smile you wore as you watched their desperation. That haunting will outlast every apology they ever demanded. They will learn that the most devastating power lies not in destruction, but in detachment, the ability to close the door without looking back. Now you exit their story without a backward glance, leaving behind a silence so profound it resonates through their doubts. They'll search for the version of you they could control, only to find that control was never yours to give. And in the emptiness of that search, you remain the only answer that matters. Share in the comments if you've felt the force of silence. Transform your world. Too many truths die behind words you never speak.